Welcome to the Real Comic Heroes Podcast. Your adventure into the world of comic book movies starts here.
Greetings, citizens, and welcome to another adventure of the Real Comic Heroes Podcast. My name's Travis, and Patrick is still on assignment this week, so I'm joined by a very special guest, someone who I've been a huge fan of for a decade, Mr. Pete the Retailer of Star Wars Minute. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. That's such a glowing intro, and that fills me with dread that you can have been a fan for 10 years. But
Yeah.
It makes sense. We've been doing it for just over 10 years. So
Yeah, I came in to Star Wars Minute as the one of the Doug Benson
Sure, yeah.
recruits.
yeah, and that was I think right about 10 years ago. So there
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah. So yeah, no, thrilled to have you on, and
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm very interested to find out why you picked the Avengers to talk
Mhm.
about, and then your history. So, or if you want to do your history with it first and then explain what made you want to talk about it, however you.
I mean, it's kind of one and the same. I mean, the Avengers, the concept was always it was kind of in the nerd canon of stuff that was just a little bit before my time, and the people who were nerds before me were into it. I feel like I've throughout my life, I've mentioned one of my, I'm not going to call it an influence, but one of my early kind of like nerd, pieces of scripture was the Intergalactic Trading Company catalog that I used to get in the mail. And, they're a mail order house from Florida. They're still around. They do conventions and stuff. And they would always, they had like just this mail order house of stuff that, stuff for nerds, from nerd stuff. A lot of Star Trek, obviously, but then they also had all the kind of the other elements of the nerd canon.
Okay.
And it was stuff like, the Avengers, like Space 1999, Doctor Who, obviously a lot of like, Blake's Seven and all this stuff that's just like, oh, nerds are into this stuff, but it's not readily available to me. That it wasn't regularly on TV anytime that I, could find it. Like Doctor Who was on sometimes, and some of the other stuff I ended up seeing here and there, but like unless you had a nerd to hand it down to you. Like I have friends who have older brothers who were they were like, no, you got to watch this. And so I didn't really know much of the show, but then when the movie came out, like I was aware of it enough to want to go see it. And then I feel like, and not to, I worry that when I say this, I sound, I'm trying to sound hipstery or something like that. But I feel like it's the opposite. It's like there's a handful of things in life, and I've grown to expect it now, that it's just like when I go to a movie and I find myself enjoying something, I'm not surprised anymore where then I go and it's like, oh, public opinion is that sucked. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. It used to bewilder me and kind of, like my most, obviously one of my go-tos is Ishtar, which like, I saw Ishtar in the theater when I guess I was probably 12 when it came out, and I came out and I was like, that was hilarious. That was great. And then like slowly over the years being like, wait a minute, why does everybody think that funny movie is one of the worst? Like,
yeah.
And so this kind of falls in. I'm under no pretense that this is one of the best movies of all time, but it's certainly something that I enjoyed and something that I enjoy. I don't know. I don't get to talk about it too much, but it's something that something I certainly like, think of moments from
think
time
fondly
to time.
of.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting. I had never seen this before. It was one that I remember seeing the trailer for it, and there were several moments in the trailer that were very familiar. The Sean Connery monologue, his moments from the trailer have stuck with me, and just some of the iconography I remembered, some of Uma Thurman in the cat suit sort of thing. That all stood out to me. But yeah, I think this might be one of the earlier movies that I remember just hearing, hearing bad things about, and genuinely not being interested in seeing something like this. And at the time, so I'd be 15 when this came out, and other movies like this would appeal to me, but yeah, something about this one just did not grab me. And I didn't go and see every movie anyways, so I was still kind of at the mercy of like, if the whole family wasn't interested in seeing it, I wasn't gonna go, didn't have a way to really get myself to the theater and see something. And this, yeah, just never grabbed my attention, and I heard nothing good about it, and so I never decided to, go and investigate for myself. But here we are. It's on the list, so I watched it the other night, and I'm excited to talk about it. So
yeah, I feel like if it had been made a few years later, it would have been more confident in what it was doing. I mean, it has moments of pure confidence, which totally didn't fit with the time. Like,
Sure.
people, I think it's aged a little bit. Surprisingly, some parts of it have aged well in terms of like, we expect, we are more comfortable with like an action comedy.
Yeah.
Now, like a goofy kind of action comedy now.
Mm-hmm.
Other parts have aged incredibly poorly, but
Yeah.
I think like the kind of goofy, like the self-aware action comedy thing wasn't as prevalent. I could be mistaken. People would be like, hey,
Sure.
what about this? Which is
Yeah.
but it's stylized and goofy, and I think there was room for that later on, but at the time it certainly didn't help its reputation that it came out in a time where we were still pretty serious about ourselves in terms
of and my thinking throughout watching it, I couldn't decide if the movie thought it was, making, like, poking fun at things like James Bond, or were they trying to be serious about some things. And it just, but it, like, the things that felt like they were poking fun weren't funny, and especially in an age where, like, Austin Powers had come out the year before. But then you still have James Bond movies coming out, and like it opens with just this very bland sequence of John Steed sort of walking through this little quaint town, and he starts fighting some people, and it's like it's a training course sort of thing, and he gets through it and gets evaluated, and it's like, that was your intro, like that's your opening action scene. I didn't know if they were trying to subvert sort of expectations, like, oh, we're not doing a big, bombastic sort of action scene at the beginning. We're doing this. This is different. This is, I couldn't tell throughout the movie. Are we meant to have fun with this, or meant to treat this like a serious spycraft?
No,
so
I think at no point does it expect to be taken seriously. It's not poking fun so much as having fun, I think. It's not making fun. It's not like pointing a mirror or anything. It's just, it's kind of influenced by and from that, but then also kind of having fun with it. And I think that sequence was supposed to set up how you're supposed to feel about it, but then it doesn't consistently live in there. I feel like it gets pulled in the, I think probably, if I would guess, probably by, studio machinations. I bet they get pulled into like, oh, why don't we make this more of a action, lean into the action a little bit more, and let's have some action scenes. But that is never satisfying because they don't lean far enough into it. And they shouldn't, because then it also kind of takes away from like, wait a minute, I thought we were doing the goofy fun stuff. So yeah, I'll blame the studio for that. But I love, like, there's a lot of things that I love about the script in parts like that. I'm interesting to see how much. I'd love to see the script, because a lot of the dialogue I think is snappy and fun, and like there's a lot of this. It feels like a lot of it lives closer to the type of James Bond movie that I like, a lot closer to it than some of the latter James Bond movies.
More of a Roger Moore.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's like in that Roger Moore James Bond thing. It's closer. It's like on the other side of the line over there, but closer to that than some, certainly like a License to Kill or something like that, which is like more of like a gritty,
Right.
But yeah, it suffers from not firmly being able to plant its foot and say exactly what it is.
And I would say mostly I enjoyed the performances throughout the movie. I like Ray Fiennes in this. I think he's doing, a really nice performance as this character. And I'm not familiar enough with the John Steed from the show to know if he's, if he's doing his own thing or if he is coming across as very much a John Steed, Patrick McNee sort of performance. But I like him in this. I think he's got he's not the typical action star. He may have, could have maybe done a Bond in this era. Of course, he would be attached to the Bond franchise later, but he's great. One of the things in this like opening training montage thing that really jumped out at me, it'll come back later, is there's one lady, she's pushing a stroller, and she comes out with knives to throw at him, and I thought, oh, this lady better come out with a machine gun, but knives instead. So I was like, oh, that's a little disappointing. But that'll get she'll get her
or she'll have her moment.
Yeah.
I was a little bit disappointed that there was no like fake baby, or it didn't involve the carriage enough. It was just like, oh, that's just where she pulled the knives from, and it was like, and I like Ray Fiennes as him. My brief, a minimal exposure to the original character. It seems like he's doing a good job of melding kind of, the essence of it with, his own little, enough of him on it that is kind of believable. And I don't, I like Uma Thurman in things, and it totally makes sense for them to want to put her in this at the time. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to make this movie, you need an Uma Thurman, sure. But I don't think she's right for this role.
I've been on, we covered, Batman and Robin not too long ago, with Riley Silverman, actually. Oh, yeah. And, I talked about then, I'm not a fan of Uma Thurman. I don't care for her in most movies. I just not a fan of her as an actor. And this, I probably like her more in this than anything I've seen her in. But yeah, overall, don't really care for Uma Thurman. I'm kind of surprised. I mean, I'm sure this was already well in development, by the time the reactions from Batman and Robin had come out, of course. So,
she still just was able to maintain that.
Yeah.
Let me see. What do I like her in? I know I said I like her.
Yeah.
I'm like, I like her in things. Do I? I don't know.
Kill Bill?
No, I didn't like Kill Bill at all.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh boy, maybe. I don't know. Oh yeah, I mean, Pulp Fiction is kind of like.
Oh, of course.
Right, yeah. Yeah. All right. I don't know. I'll have to reassess that. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I don't really like her that much. She was in some things, and none of it.
You like the idea of an Uma Thurman, but
yeah. And I did. I'll take the opportunity to share this. We shared a moment once, me and Uma Thurman, because she used to live down the block from the place where I worked, and.
Oh, okay.
You'd see her around, but we never really interacted until like one day it's just, blizzard, snowstorm that shuts down the city basically. And I'm outside. We got to, trying to open the store, I think. So I'm outside shoveling out front, and, basically nobody around. And I'm wearing, they used to sell down on St. Mark's Place in Manhattan. They used to sell for a while. I don't know why it was a trend for like a year or two, but there were these like little knit beanies that had just a letter on them. So you would buy like, like your initial or whatever.
Yeah.
And so just along with my other, I used to wear a lot of hats with P's on them. And so this is perfect. Addition to my collection, put on my knit hat with a P on it. And I'm out there shoveling, nobody around, except like I go to shovel at kind of the crosswalk, and I look up and somebody steps into the crosswalk. And it's Uma Thurman, and I look up, and she's wearing the same hat, but with a U on it. And I look, and we pointed at each other, like, and then that was it. And
nice.
She crossed the street and left my life. Never saw her again.
Right.
But,
what year was that? I mean, era.
Probably around this era.
Okay. Yeah.
So I feel like maybe I don't like her in things. Maybe I'm just, there hasn't been enough for me to like actively dislike her. I'm just kind of
right.
In theory, I like her, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I'll have to go back and question my research.
Right. Yeah. Well, we find out, we meet Jim Broadbent's character, and he's playing Mother. I don't know if we know his name at this point, but we meet him, and he's in just this dirty old basement of a, it's not, again, maybe subverting kind of your expectations. It's not in a shiny, sleek, sophisticated, MI6 sort of location. And he says something about Prospero is down, or the world weather shield is down, and you can see this graphic, and it looks like an umbrella being turned off, an umbrella over the world. And then we meet Emma Peel, played by Uma Thurman, and she gets this call, or she gets a package, and then opens the package, and it's a phone, or I think that's right, it's a package with a note that says answer the phone.
Right.
So she answers the phone. It says, a car will pick you up to take you to this gentleman's club. And it's not the kind of gentleman's club I was expecting to see in the next scene. It's one of these, stuffy old, English mahogany and leather smelling sort of gentlemen's, establishments. No women allowed sort of thing that they have a little fun with. And I actually enjoy that. I guess it's and she'll say later, like, was this a test? They're testing her to see if she can make it past the doorman and make it to John Steed, and the whole thing. I don't know. Didn't play well for me once she gets to John Steed and he's in the steam room and he's naked, and it's that seems odd. It's
it could go. I hate to say that it's all direction, but because I feel like in the script there's good, the dialogue between them is snappy, and you could play this, you can shoot this differently in a way that makes it, I think it does a decent job of making him, like, it's not, he's not doing it to be creepy. You get that idea. Like, it's not like an LBJ thing where he's doing it as a power play kind of, like, he's not just kind of, forcing his nudity on people, but he's kind of, just wanted to see how she dealt with that, with those barriers, those situation. And you could play this, you could take exactly what's written and probably do it in a way that felt more like that she was doing something. Although I do like his what's his line there? Something, I think, like
throwing in the towel.
Well, no, that all that little cute little dialogue, that's funny. But they have this conversation where she's like, he's like, oh, it's against the rules. She's like, I never play by the rules. And he was like, play by the rules or the game is nothing. Which I like that, because that's a thing that's totally, like, in the face of exactly what I was saying with the the stuff that I don't like about where James Bond has gone.
Sure.
Where it's like every single one, it's just like, no, he has to go rogue because he's
right.
The rules don't apply to him. He's got to go beyond. And it's just like, no, just like I want a nice little story where some secret agents get a mission, they go places and save the world. And so I like his little thing, even though it comes back with a little bit of. We learn a little bit more about that later. He's not always 100% the rules, but I like that,
he operates mostly in the confines of this agency. Yeah. See, this came across to me as all this was it felt like we want a scene where people can imagine, can think of James Bond, can think of a Pierce Brosnan. This is a Pierce Brosnan scene where it would be sexualized. He would, he says, that I think she says, "Oh, don't get up," and he responds with, "Oh, I was about to throw in the towel," And I think in a Pierce Brosnan or even a maybe a Sean Connery Bond, like it would be this forced sexualized moment that. At the time you wouldn't bat an eye in it because it's in a James Bond movie and that's what they're, full of. Now, right. To me, it just felt like the studio wanted a James Bond moment here with innuendos and just with this, two good looking people and one of them is naked and it makes it sexual. And, you're right about the dialogue, though. I think you could take this scene, and I think it would work really well because they didn't have to meet here. He could have picked her up, and they could have had their conversation. And this conversation that they have could have taken place, like it does in the next scene, in a car. Like, I just felt like it was an odd way to go about introducing them. But
yeah. I mean, overall, their relationship is a bit odd throughout. And I don't know, again, not familiar enough with the original to it's frustrating everybody who's of course, the people who are just a little bit older than me who've watched every single episode and they're like, oh, you don't understand. But the frustrating that it's not like I don't know if their relationship was romantic in the original. I don't believe so.
Yeah, I don't know either.
But it seems like that could also be a force to a certain extent, that the studio's like, well, if you're going to have these two people, you got to have them romantically involved.
I kind of assumed that in the series that they weren't romantic, but here again, we're making a movie. It's with these two stars, we want to have the sexual tension. By the end of the movie, we're going to have them kiss. There was a moment earlier where they almost kiss, kind of building on that, and then they don't kiss. And I thought, oh, maybe that was a nod to, in the show they never kissed, so here we're not going to have them kiss. But then the one thing I know about the Avengers TV show is an image of Diana Rigg in a dominatrix sort of outfit, like spiky collar, high leather boots. And then I started looking up, Avengers, Diana Rigg, and it seems like there's a lot of sequences in that show of near almost bondage fetish type stuff. A lot of her being tied up with ropes. And so I don't know what the show was like. I wonder, was it considered racy at the time? I don't know. But just that brief, little surface level kind of looking into that, I just wonder what the show was really like. But
yeah, it could be. I mean, it could be also that's why I never was exposed to it as much, because maybe it was just in the time it was a little bit more, maybe not acceptable, but it was by the time I came around a couple years later, it was like, wait a minute, we shouldn't show this to kids.
They so John and Emma, they go to their the ministry, I think is all it's really called, and they meet up with Jim Broadbent. His we find out he's playing Mother, which I kind of like that. And I
love the details of him, exactly what you said before, with this the opposite of it's not this high tech MI6 kind of MI5, MI6. Wait a minute, either way, it's not a the high tech kind of James Bond kind of labs kind of a thing. It's a dingy kind of basement thing, and I love the details of just he's sweaty, kind of greasy with the dandruff flakes.
He's
on his
got
shoulder,
dandruff,
and,
yes,
cigarette kind of half smoked, and I love that kind of griminess in that.
Yeah. I think watching it, I wasn't prepared for that. I was expecting more of this sleek and put together sort of government agency. So when I saw him and this location and then I noticed what at first I thought is the ceiling crumbling and he's got dust on him on his shoulders, and then I saw it again later. I was like, no, I think that's dandruff. And I thought, what the hell kind of character choice is this? So that really threw me. Now thinking about it, I can see kind of the charm in that, and this, this sort of character that I do kind of like that idea. But in the middle of watching it, I was not charmed by it.
I also it made me think well, how come Jim Broadbent's not in a Star Wars? I want him in a Star Wars. Got a couple of between. Well, the whole thing is very much down the road. This is there's a lot of Harry Potter DNA especially how they run around talking about the ministry, and I kept being what?
There's a maze sequence later, and he's Jim Broadbent is I think of him as Slughorn, from the Harry Potter movies, and that's I love that character. So that's I have a hard time not thinking of that character and seeing him here, but kind of a similar kind of character, know.
Yeah, I wonder if that has somebody put that together to make him because they're both working for a ministry. But I would want him in a Star Wars, because he seems he's been in a ton of stuff. I was looking him up. I was like, oh yeah. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Why hasn't he been in one? But we could work him in there. There's still time.
Yeah. I found it odd that at this point they're just coming out and telling us what happened and presenting Emma and John and kind of just showing them that this science lab got broken into and destroyed, and we think you did it, and here's why, and here's some footage. And I thinking about this, I'm like, this is a point that I wrote down several times in my notes watching this was there's a lot of the whole like show don't tell kind of thing with movies is they either what they show us doesn't make sense, and I found out it's because this thing was edited down from being a 115-minute movie to being 89 minutes, and they'd cut a lot of stuff out. And so what they show us doesn't always make sense, and then what they tell us is something I'd like to see.
Right.
And this is an example of that. Like, they're telling us about this big operation that happened. It's like, that would have been a fun cold open, if this science lab gets broken into and blown up and some sort of like spy mission, and then you find out, oh, it's Emma Peel doing it. It's like, I'd like to see that. And
before you meet her, before you meet the real Peel, do you get if you saw her as part of that, it definitely would have added some intrigue, some suspense, because I feel like finding that out, I just found that out recently, like how much was cut out of it, and it does make me want to. Apparently, the novelization is
okay.
Was based on the original script, so now I'm going to add that to my list of novelizations that I'll probably buy and never read, but I'll be interested in.
Right, but and in kind of doing some of the research on this, apparently that was a scene that was at the start of the movie that they did cut out. They show us a little bit of the security camera footage, and that would have, I'm sure, been part of this overall scene of her, her clone just ransacking this sort of science installation. And it's a shame that they cut that out. But so then they decide this this kind of is where it started to kind of bug me in that they let her go along with John Steed in this, they don't really have a convincing reason why they let her go. I guess she, says that, well, I'll clear my name, that obviously wasn't me, and that sort of thing. It kind of bends the believability of like, we think you did this. But you're free to go and sort of investigate this, I guess. But
under the supervision of one of their top agents,
sure.
I guess. So it's almost like a parole or not, but they operate outside.
Yeah,
outside
she's chaperoned.
The proper channels. They're not
right.
But it is a little unlikely, but not enough. I mean, again, we got to lean into the goofiness, so that's fine.
Yeah. It's the sort of thing that. Well, I guess they're laying the groundwork for, there's another Emma Peel, which I had no prior knowledge of. I didn't know, again, I was vaguely familiar with the trailer that I saw, 20 years ago or whatever. So if that was part of the trailer or marketing, which I suspect it wasn't, because the marketing that I remember, like I didn't know it wasn't. I keep thinking about her in this cat suit, and I thought it was the Emma Peel, part of the marketing. They put her on the poster in that the almost the Black Widow, the original 60s comic Black Widow sort of costume. And it's like watching this movie is like, well, that's not really her till the very end of the movie. But so I don't know if the So they head off, and then we meet Father, played by Fiona Shaw, which again, nice little playing with the code names sort of thing, I suppose. Didn't care for her character. I like Fiona Shaw in a lot of things. Obviously she's great in Harry Potter stuff. She was amazing in Andor.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever seen her in much else. I know I have, but I can't think of anything. But interesting character, and I think poorly used in this. I'll get to that a little bit later.
Yeah. I mean, I like the introduction of the good cop, bad cop kind of thing with the two, and mother and father, and the in the code name wise, there's kind of that stereotype more than it's like the the indulgent mother and the abusive father or whatever. It's like and you don't. It takes a little while before they let you know that she's actually on on the wrong side of things, and it's not just her being strict and creepy.
Yeah. There's just some like the next scene is just them as Steed and Peel, just casually, just casually having a sword fight while shopping for clothes in a men's, I guess a men's department store sort of sort of thing, and
it's a very special men's shop that we find out.
Yeah. It's interesting. I would like to see what led up to there being a sword fight, because there literally isn't any lead up to it. It's just we cut to this scene and they're sword fighting, and it's like, okay. I like the exposition in it. They're talking about sort of the some of the Prospero sort of weather and science of it all, and that's all fine, and I feel like it's sort of the filmmakers sort of looking at the script and thinking, it's an exposition dump, but what if there was a sword fight? Like right. I feel like that was it, and then suddenly we're just in a sword fight. So
yeah, no real explanation, but I mean it leans on dumps exposition and gives you that. I feel like that kind of like sword fight between not quite rivals, between teammates, but like rivals on the same team. What's the kind of like I feel like that's a trope, and that's the kind of lean heavily into that,
testing each other to see who's the better,
right?
And
I kept kind of having to say it's like it reminded me a lot of the the superego, like how British am I, like
of course,
because every single thing, like with the running gag with tea time, which is already like by this time it's like it's happened 2 or 3 times, they're just in the middle of something and stop for tea. And the having the fencing in the men's shop at the thing, and like all these things keep going back to like, how British am I?
Right.
They really leaned heavily into that. I mean, there is even like later there's a reference to like Saint Swithin's Day and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like they really went for it.
There was an odd moment there at the end of the sort of this department store, this men's store, I guess, where there's a lot of emphasis placed on these boots, that Mrs. Peel's boots will be delivered to the house, and you can tell like, okay, there's going to be something with this boots, and then I thought, okay, then we're on the way to Steed's house where the boots will be waiting for her. We don't get to the boots, I mean, for like an hour down the road. It's like, this, like that was, it's just such an odd, I think this is an editing thing where they thought, this is going to make sense in a minute, but then they just put that connecting scene much later, and it just, I don't know. But
it also, I mean, it played a little bit on like the, because he's like, all right, your clothes are going to be delivered to your house. Where like wink wink, like is she going to your house? Should I have the boots delivered there? And then he's like, yep, send the boots along. And so that was, I don't know, I liked that that was kind of like subtle, but then it doesn't come back for a while.
And then another thing that while watching I could tell was an editing thing that didn't go anywhere is they go out, they leave the store, they get into the car doesn't start immediately, and you can tell, that's odd. So I'm thinking, okay, someone's tampered with the car. Okay,
I think
great,
you get
good,
a shot
good,
of Eddie Izzard right before that too, right? So it's like, oh, something's going to happen, and then no, nothing happened.
Exactly. The whole Eddie Izzard, Susie Izzard, I guess as she goes by now, but I did read, she's fine with people calling her Eddie, especially in relation to her roles. But such an odd, I was like, when I didn't know she was in this, and I was like, oh great, I love Eddie Izzard, so I was expecting like the character from Mystery Men, and it's not what I got. Such an underplayed role that it really surprised me. But like I said, so we see that sort of foreshadowing of something with the car, and then they get in the car and it's more exposition. And then I happen to notice like, oh, there's a Mini Cooper that just pulled up behind them.
Right.
So okay, we're gonna get into a chase sequence. No,
No.
then the next they cut back and the car behind them is just totally gone. I was like, okay, that feels like a hard edit there. Like I'm thinking there was a chase there, and then we cut that out and we've cut back to the conversation,
Yeah.
and so like that just felt like while I'm watching it, I feel like, yeah, I'm missing something here.
It makes me now. There's absolutely no clamor for this, but I wonder if at some point they still have the anything that they shot.
I read that the director Jeremiah Chechik has offered to recut the movie for free to Warner Brothers, and they have flat out said we are not interested in doing anything else with this movie or with whatever else we have of it. So, but
it's disappointing. I'd like to see it. Let me put
right.
that out there. Release the Chechik cut.
Yeah. Such I like the car scene well enough, but it's kind of another exposition scene. There's a nice little tea time moment here where the car has tea, and that's all fine. But it's like they start to talk about just we'll go see this weather expert who used to be part of the ministry, and we're thankfully introduced to Sean Connery, and but they play it like we're gonna pull up to the house, you'll sneak in, you'll go right in through the front, I'll sneak around back. It's like, why is that necessary?
I mean,
I think they may say something about he's very reclusive and doesn't like visitors, but if you go in the front, he'll welcome you because
right.
woman.
Yeah.
So
which I like that, like, he's like, talk about something, innocuous. And he was like the weather. And he was like, no, not with this guy.
Yeah. Don't start naming clouds or,
right.
Man.
But yeah, then we meet Connery going overboard, being a goofy ham, which I like.
I really like him in this movie. I like that he gets a chance to play a Bond villain because I feel like that's totally what he's doing. And I can't really think of another Connery villain role. Because he's kind of like in Hunt for Red October, he's kind of the bad guy for part of it, but then
he's the not a villain, he's the antagonist.
Yeah. But I think it suits him. I mean, I really liked him playing this character. It's completely over the top, but I think it's very fitting that he gets to play this type of villain. So I enjoyed every sequence of, well, say that with a grain of salt. I don't enjoy their meeting. And, I don't like this sequence with him and Peel because he comes on so creepy. And
there's a couple of scenes where especially when it's just the two of them, where it's just like nope.
Right. But then they set that up, and here's another thing that I noted that like we meet him playing an organ, and then it pans up, and there's a painting clearly of Uma Thurman or some Uma Thurman character, and that will never get paid off.
Nope.
And
so it's like then like so we can assume that he's created the clone. We don't learn
he was somehow it was his science that was involved in the cloning the whole cloning thing. I thought maybe the original template of Emma Peel maybe was his wife, and that maybe he cloned his wife, and then maybe one of those cloned children grows up to be Emma Peel, and that was I thought
it's like Rise of
I didn't know where they were going, but I assumed like, okay, you set something like that up, you're gonna pay it off, right?
Nope.
Nah, we'll just ignore that. And so it would not justify it, but it would explain why he's so infatuated with her upon meeting her. And it kind of explain that instant like flirtatiousness that he's displaying, but no, it just kind of just comes off as a creepy old man. So that was a little disappointing. And but the whole talk of like, the weather and like that obviously is what they have in common. She's involved in the weather technology and everything, and they start naming the clouds, and it really gets his attention, and I don't know,
Yeah,
it's an odd meeting, but
yeah, yeah. It doesn't fit the tone that we were supposed to be going for, the goofy fun
yeah,
tone. Like I know, and I know
yeah,
we're trying to establish him as the villain, and yes, but it's like it's
yeah.
too creepy. Where it's like, oh, that's not fun anymore either.
Hmm. And on the other hand, I like what they're setting up with the what John Steed is up to. He's wandering around the grounds,
Hmm.
and happens into a snowstorm, and has to take refuge in a one of these phone boxes, and
Right.
like that's all fun, and I do like that, and um
Yeah, that
I like
that
I
rings
like
of
the mystery and adventure of
yeah,
that part of it, but
yeah, very much like the fun times from some James Bond movies. It seemed like that kind of a thing where it's just
yeah.
pushing that even beyond to this like quirky
Hmm.
weirdness, which has flashes throughout this movie, but doesn't ever fully commit to it
Yeah.
as much as I want it to.
Well, then once we catch up with John Steed, and he's sort of wandering around, and then the cloned Emma Peel, you know, finds him and shoots him. We find out later that he's wearing a bulletproof vest, but you know, she shoots him, and then it fades out, and obviously we're like, okay, well, obviously this is the evil, clone Emma Peel, and then he is revived and in the presence of Emma Peel in, I believe, her apartment.
Hmm.
And so at this point, I'm wondering which Emma Peel is he with,
Right.
because we didn't see her. We didn't see Emma Peel leave the presence of Sir August de Winter,
Hmm.
and so I'm thinking, okay, this is a good, like, I like this. I like this mystery of like, is this Emma Peel? Is this the clone pretending to be Peel? Whose presence is he in? So I like that. And then it's like, as it goes along, I'm like, no, they just don't explain how he gets shot by one, version of Peel and then picked up by the other. I mean, it's in the dialogue, but I don't believe it because I'm expecting there to be, this to be a ruse and everything. And so like, once I get wrapped up in that, I'm less interested in what's actually happening, because I'm liking a mystery aspect of it that's not here, you know. So it kind of let me down on one of those, on that level.
Yeah, I mean
But I thought it would be interesting. But
that's where I mean, again, this is like major problems to maybe to a lot of viewers, a lot of moviegoers. But like my problems are exactly that it like often is lacking in urgency or stakes, or and I hate to throw around. I feel like stakes are thrown around too often as like, oh, you have to earn it and whatever in terms of
right,
movie making. I feel like that's armchair quarterbacking when it comes
yeah,
to armchair film criticism. But like
sure,
you can tell on a broader sense, you can tell that like, oh, that's what doesn't work here, is that like I'm never concerned about what's going on. I'm never
yeah,
like, I'm not wrapped up in the mystery, and I don't have to feel like it's like, oh, it's going to be the end of the world. Like that is less interesting to me than like what, just understanding what the like never really feel like the characters are I'm not caught up on their adventure. I'm just kind of watching
yeah,
things that they're doing from
right,
time to time. You know what I mean? And
yeah, yeah,
um, that's a major fault with this. It's just like the
mm,
style is there, the
yeah, yeah,
dialogue is kind of there, and it's like it's you need to. And again, I don't know if it's like direction that they needed somebody, like they should have gotten, like if they were gonna keep a foot firmly planted in like the action thing, then they should have
yeah,
had a at least a like an assistant director or somebody who's there to be like, who's more action friendly,
yeah,
more action experienced, to be like, okay, well, I'll make the fight scene look good. you
hmm,
know I'll make sure that we're moving along. And again, judging it based on the final product after it was hacked by the studio
yeah,
is not
yeah,
fair to everybody. But it does seem like there's certainly, or go the other way and like trim some of the action parts and throw in a little more, goofy fun.
Yeah.
Although again, they probably wanted to. You said Austin Powers was like the year before this. So
97. Yeah.
So they probably
Yeah.
wanted to like inch back away from that a little bit to not be. They're like, well, we don't want to be seen as a comedy, but we want to be fun, but not like we're not a
But
raunchy parody. You know what I mean?
then we get a scene like we're in the evil business headquarters, and everyone's wearing teddy bear costumes.
I love that.
Where
part
does
so much.
I see that frame and this boardroom circled with teddy bears, and I paused it and I had a literal, what the fuck is this? I at this point I was so angry because we just came off of like I was talking about the whole like, is this Emma Peel? Is John Steed in danger because he's with the fake Emma Peel and it's going to turn and become, a fight scene with them? And then no, it just seems normal. And then, oh yeah, here's a boardroom surrounded by teddy bears. And yeah, I had to pause it and just take, is this really happening? Did I somehow stumble into another movie? I had no preparation for this.
Yeah.
And so is this a comedy moment? Are they trying to be funny? Because it doesn't play as funny. It just plays as weird. And I just wasn't prepared to see a Sean Connery take off the head of a teddy bear. And I don't know.
That's the thing. I think they were trying to walk this line and have it be fun, not necessarily funny, but fun and quirky. And it just doesn't.
Yeah.
I think too many times they tried to pull it into the other.
Yeah.
Somebody tried to pull it into this kind of serious action for like a second, and that kind of undoes a lot of the trust that you have in it being goofy, quirky fun.
Right. Because I think they're going for, I like what's, again, on I think I would probably like the novelization as well. I like what's being said here. I like that they're setting up, that Sir August de Winter knows who everyone is. That's why he can take off his mask, because everyone knows him. He knows all the players. And everyone at this point needs to decide, are we in? Are we out? That's a very Goldfinger moment, when Goldfinger, has all the mobsters buy in and but ends up killing them all anyways. But so like it works on that level. It works on a Spectre sort of level of like when we're most of the early movies, when we're seeing a Spectre sort of scene around a boardroom or a evil lair, you don't necessarily see everybody, or you certainly don't see Blofeld. So like that anonymity of who all the people are. But I think you could have done this same scene if everyone was wearing suits, well dressed and everything, but they were wearing like Zodiac masks. I mean, because the movie plays with Zodiac and August and weather and things like that. I think you could have everyone wearing some sort of themed mask, almost like what's that movie, the Nicole Kidman, Tom Cruise,
Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah, well, they're all just kind of wearing masks for the anonymity of it. And I think just go simple like that, I think it would totally work. But instead, we get
this is one of my favorite parts. I think is that I love that they did that, because I think this is where I laughed and turned to whoever I saw this. I'm trying to picture who I saw this with who was not having fun. And I turned and I was like, a big smile on my face. I'm like, ha, and then look, and everybody's like,
yeah. Now I will say, like, having said all that, one of the most genuine laughs I've had in a long time came up in a few moments, and it was because of one of the bear sort of antics. So can't wait to talk about that. But but yeah, I mean, so De Winter goes around and like I said, he wants to see if everyone's in, and two people say no, so he instantly kills them. Like that's great. I think that works. At the same time, you've got Steed and Peel, and something that again kind of wasn't really established is that she found a clue while she was meeting with De Winter earlier. She came away with a snow globe that had an umbrella, and that's what leads them here. So they're kind of snooping around in more of the the commercial side of the business, and
they've got like a storefront essentially, like an
yeah,
office space, which again, very brawly. So it's like, again, how British am I? It's like the whole like
right.
umbrella and like how the
That
the
took
whole
me a
thing.
minute to put together. I
Yeah.
didn't know what brawly meant. I didn't know brawly was a slang term for umbrella, and they're using brawly as the name of this company, and it's meant, it means a British, oh, what, I wrote it down, British organization for lasting liquid years, which
Yeah.
no idea what that means, but that's all right. So yeah, Steve, yeah, they don't have a good couple name. Steed and Peel are snooping around, and they find one of these two bears. They find the two dead guys, and they take the heads off, and it's they're two weather scientists that she recognizes. So that's builds to the plot of there being some sort of weather schemes being afoot. That I feel like there's never like a good aha moment for anyone. It's
Yeah.
like very late in the movie, they end up talking about there being like some sort of weather weapon. It's like, oh yeah, didn't we? Thought we already knew that. Like I thought we knew that from like almost the get go when
Right.
all this stuff was stolen.
Yeah,
So
we knew that he was doing something about controlling the weather. We didn't know exactly what his.
Yeah. No, so my favorite, my laugh out loud moment was like they run off in two directions. One of them goes up to like the window, and they see I think a bear in red get on a glass elevator, and the bear is just standing there, so like you do on an elevator, but here it's like comedically, like standing there with your hand on your hip, and then the bear looks over and sees whichever one it is, and literally points to them. And just this, I want a gif of the bear looking and pointing at them. I lost it. That to me was so funny. Just the visual of it, just the because you don't hear anything, but you can tell that they're saying, "Hey, you,"
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. They lean into it for a little bit. They got that like the boardroom scene, and then the elevator thing, and then the she gets attacked by the bear.
Mm-hmm.
And then like just that moment of like, like bear in midair, like leaping at her,
Yeah.
and then she like, takes the head off, and it's her. And
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
oh man, that's and then, when confronted, she just then like runs off the side of the building and leaps. And that whole sequence is just so odd and fun, I think.
Yeah. I wrote down, like, if I was covering this 1 minute at a time, this minute would be chasing bears chasing bears through the stainless steel jungle. Just this location, there's lots of glass and stainless steel, and it's kind of industrial. There's pipes and tubes, and it's a good location for all this. I don't, but yeah, it's just kind of odd.
Yeah.
There's and we get another sequence where Steed comes upon I guess it's Izzard's character, because Izzard, or Bailey, I guess his character's name, tosses the red bear suit in the trash. So
right,
might have been who was in the suit, but they have an interaction, and it's wordless, and I'm still missing that like great Eddie Izzard voice.
Yeah.
They have a fight and everything, and that kind of.
I this is not going to do it any favors. Not going to do anyone's opinion of this movie any favors. But I have to admit that there are scenes and parts of this movie that I was like, wait, was that in this, or was that in Hudson Hawk?
Oh, okay.
And having rewatched it for this, I'm like, oh, okay, no, I was thinking of Hudson Hawk for that part, and like, but I think they're not far off tonally what they were trying to do. They're both trying to be a goofy, fun, comedy tinged action movie, but didn't land, and we didn't know what.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to say we didn't know what that was, because I'm sure there are good examples, but like it wasn't as refined a formula as it is now, where we can, pretty much everything that, not everything that comes out, but a lot of, for years, like blockbusters are all very kind of comedy tinged, action films with a lot of stylized, violence and some goofy fun.
Right.
But yeah, the the henchmen who are running around in Hudson Hawk, I feel kind of similar about this Eddie Izzard and the Happy Mondays guy, and there's a couple of other guys in there.
Yeah, and then so after this, I feel like there's a kind of an odd moment. Steed sees that there are two, Peels, so
Right.
he's at least aware of the whole, that it's not her, it's a double or a clone or a twin, or we're not sure yet. But so on one hand, I like that he can now believe her, so that's good. And then they have an odd moment where there's like a mobile headquarters for the ministry, and it's a red double-decker bus, because like I said, how British is this?
Right, yeah. And that's what they talk about seeing Swithin's Day on the bus.
Okay, yeah,
so
yeah,
like, okay,
yeah.
yes.
And I like the scene, but then I'm distracted by because we'll find out that the John is here, and then I'm distracted by where's Peel. They're I think they're talking about her and sort of everything that's happened up till now, but then to me it was distracting. Like, where's she? Maybe she's up in the upper deck of the bus. I don't know, but then I think the next time you see them together, it's like she does. I don't know. It didn't seem like they came away with this with any clarity, or that she. I don't know. It just bugged me.
I think it was, we don't see him until after they're done, right? Like they have their conversation for a little bit and then turn to him, and he's sitting right there the whole time, which I like that as a gag. But then, I almost feel like either if they wanted to lean into it as a gag, either then should have turned to her and be like, okay, you're off the hook. Or, just at least.
Because I think they're questioning him about what he saw. And he's saying, no, I saw, but then they're not convinced yet. I don't know. It's really strange.
Yeah. Or at least cut to her upstairs having tea or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Throw another tea time gag.
Yeah. There's like a sort of a standalone moment where De Winter is sort of testing out his weather device, and we're just in a nondescript sort of English countryside, sort of looks like farmland, and this glass sphere. I don't know the scale of it. I can't tell if it's meant to be the size of a house, or is it, the size of a bowling ball. I can't tell.
Yeah.
But it carries out some sort. It's like a lightning rod sort of thing. Like he's able to, deliver a lightning strike at that specific spot. So I don't know. As weather weapons go, does that mean you have to deliver one of these glass sort of spheres? It has to be at the place you want to attack. So I'm like, that's not super efficient. I
didn't fully grasp what was. It's like, I get the idea of like, oh, we're showing that he can launch a very precise weather attack, I guess, but we already kind of said that. We didn't really
assume
need
that.
Yeah. I'm assuming that because they paid for that like effect of the glass thing, they felt like they had to keep it in there. But I was like, really? You kept this in and you cut out some other stuff, like.
Yeah, because they sold the idea that we can pinpoint where we want weather. They established that with, like, that's what that retail sort of business was all about. It's retail weather. So it's not a leap to go from weaponizing that technology. So I don't know. But I guess we need to, check in with Sean Connery every now and then, I suppose.
Yeah. So we're paying for Sean Connery. We pay for that effect. We might as well leave that scene in.
Right. So we get a scene where we get a sort of verbal chess match with a literal chess match.
Right.
And I like it. I was surprised. I think it's another one of those like, what if they were sword fighting sort of moments? I think it may have been like, what if it's a chess match, and what if they're playing chess? Like, I kind of see it coming together that way. But I'm into it. I like that it shows that she's able to be a step ahead of him and keep up with the conversation and not even be looking at the chessboard that they're playing. And he is very focused on the chessboard, and still loses, so.
Yeah. And again, I like that in writing, but then it's just like, I feel like Uma Thurman is she's not awful, but she's not the best to be delivering these lines. I feel like coming out of somebody else's mouth who's a little more kind of like, who I somebody else who I buy as being a little more kind of like witty and clever, and maybe it would help if they were British, like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying Uma Thurman is dumb, but because I don't think she is. I think she's very smart, but I just don't get that kind of like, I don't think she's handling the kind of snappy back and forth dialogue as well as somebody else could.
Yeah.
And, I think they wanted to go for, like you said, looking at those pictures, from the original show, it's like they leaned more into okay, let's focus on kind of, eye candy, but with a capable actress, like in there, like looks are important, almost as important, they didn't want to go full on, just like,
sure.
I'm trying to think of who would have been at the time, like Jenny McCarthy or something.
Right.
But we want somebody who can like act, but also like we want somebody who people are going to want to look at.
Yeah.
And I think now,
if you were making this now, this would be Emily Blunt. I think it's that sort of. She would be the perfect actor for this role.
Right. I can see that.
But the one problem I have with this scene, as much as I did kind of like it and what they're talking about, he's going through her file, or he's telling her that he read her file, and he goes on about how her file talks about all of her medical issues and how, according to the file, she has a psychopathic personality, schizophrenic, delusions, amnesia, outburst of violent behavior, and we've not seen any of that. And so it feels like that does not match who they've shown us at this point.
Right.
If they were the whole they didn't say split personality, but like that would play into if we hadn't seen that there are two, a clone and her, it's like, oh, that would build that, suspense of, oh, maybe she is, the one doing this, but she doesn't know it. And so it's like they've kind of ruined that reveal because we know that, that it wasn't her doing the bad things earlier. And so to say that she has all these, like this is all in her file, it doesn't ring true to who we've seen, I think at this point. So I don't know what that's meant to be. That feels like the sort of thing that you would use that in the trailer, and they would punctuate every one of those character, things with her attacking somebody,
with
or like they would punctuate it with action.
Peel.
Yeah. It
seems like maybe it's like a leftover, like a remnant of something where they're kind of leaving you in the dark a little bit more about whether or not this is her doing it, because it does seem set up for like, oh well, it could be, and also it does seem like, I mean, again, we don't get the origin of what we can assume is the clone, or evil.
There's a little bit in dialogue,
like
but
because I think that you mentioned you mentioned the Zodiac thing, and that pops up a couple of times where she's like, oh, are you a Gemini? Because it's like, well, it's the twins, obviously. Okay, well, but that none of it, we don't learn anything about where this character, where did the evil one come from? No clue, no nothing.
Yeah.
And I also in the same boat. Yeah, it's like that dialogue falls into the same boat of like, okay, I think you were probably trying to go somewhere with something here, but I don't know.
Yeah. Because I think if you're going to try and say that she's crazy, then make her the only one that knows that there's a double. Right. Don't let John Steed see that, and don't let us see that either. Let it continue to play and be that there. Let there be that doubt. But because like later on they'll kind of randomly seem to take her in for interrogation, and it's like, well, why now? But
that was Father who was working with the bad guys.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Which, speaking of Father and the bad guy, we just get a scene where, it goes from the chess game where he's playing, by the rule, or they're playing by the rules, to a croquet match where De Winter is not playing by the rules and beating Father at this. I guess Father is blind. I don't know if we've said, but Father, played by Fiona Shaw, is a blind character, and they're playing croquet, and I think she's playing by sort of sound and the way they sort of that sort of trope in movies,
right.
But he's totally cheating. but this is another, like, it's kind of a reveal that, like, I don't know, maybe you'd set this scene up with, we don't know who he's playing against, and then pan up and let's see that it's father, that, because maybe at this point we're, we don't know who the bad guy is, sort of thing. But no, they just flat out show us that father is one of the bad guys. So
Yep. Well, it's time that we know, I think.
yeah, it's the right scene to do it in, but just give me, just a reveal would be better than just cut to,
Well,
but that's all right. And she's sort of, they're talking about Peel, and we have to take her out, and I think he's saying, like, well, you let me worry about that, or it's sort of being vague about it, because there's nothing really concrete that they're saying. They're not saying, well, we'll kill her, or we'll do this or that, but it's
right.
I think father's saying we need to do something about her. So
yeah,
getting too close, that sort of thing.
Then at some point, how does she get? I'm looking at my notes, and how does she get back in the? They go visit his house again. How do they get back to the?
Right. So they just cut to, I think, a scene of Peel and Steed again on the roadway, and I think this is maybe tied to that earlier scene that they cut, because here's a scene where they're driving along, and now they are being followed by robot bugs.
Yeah. Oh, right, the robot bugs.
Which, why you maybe wouldn't do some sort of weather related weapon? Maybe I don't know, if you could control, like, I keep thinking of hot hail from Flash Gordon,
yeah,
some sort of weather device. But no, they're attacked by these bugs that are being controlled by Eddie Izzard's character. So they dispatch all of the bugs in a, it's a fun enough action sequence while driving. They manage to, one of them lands on the car, and then John overtakes it and manages to get the gun portion out of the bugs, and they end up shooting all the other ones, and a lot of them hit hit bridgeways and tunnels, and so it's fun enough. But
yeah, I'm looking for is that like, who produced this? I suppose can we blame that guy who the hairdresser guy who wanted Kevin Smith to play Spider in Superman? I
mean, this is Warner Brothers, so it's possible that there was a John Peters connection with
right.
But I don't think he was involved in any way.
But yeah, it kind of a useless scene, and it doesn't. I know they're meant to, like, again, leaning into, like, okay, well, it's been a while, let's throw in an action scene.
This feels just like we need some special effects, and well, what about robot bees or wasps or whatever these things are? Right. It's like, yeah, I guess that's fine. I mean, as an action sequence goes, yeah, I don't mind it. It's just, it's bizarre, but it's fine.
Well, again, it's not fun enough. Not fun enough for it to. It's just weird. It seems out of place. Where if it was goofier, it would have been like, oh, okay, this is like the Bears or something like that. Where it's like, oh, okay, but no, it's just weird. Like, not goofy enough and not fun enough to firmly land on that. And it's just kind of like, oh, okay, it's a strange, odd choice. But yeah, I did like his little controller though. He's got the weird little kind of like multifaceted, multiplanar kind of controller for the robot bees.
But yeah, this leads them to De Winter's estate, and this is where I was the nanny kind of character, the old lady in the training sequence. She was redeemed here,
Alice,
because Alice, she they stop the car, and she's just there, I think, and pulls out a Tommy gun from this basket, or maybe she's on a bike this time. And that's the reveal I wanted. Thank you.
Right, yeah.
And she just starts, I think, it would have worked, I think, better if she just started opening fire, and then they realize, oh, she's not firing at us. She's attacking the people who are attacking us. And she kills one of them, and then sends Eddie Izzard running,
Right.
So I like that. And then we find out this is Alice, she's with the ministry, and she kind of gives them like, just kind of then joins them for the the rest of the trip to De Winter's estate. So this was I don't know. It's like, why now? Who is this lady? You know, so it's a bit bizarre, but I like her as I don't know the actor, but I like her. I like what she's doing. So, but she kind of guides them to this place, and
she almost seems familiar, but wasn't. I looked her up and I was like, oh no, I guess I haven't really.
I kind of wish like
people who's been in anything.
I wondered, like, did they reach out to Diana Rigg? You know, it's like, wouldn't that have been a good sort of cameo? I don't know. Maybe they did, and maybe she wasn't interested. So who knows? But
well, around the same time, it would have made sense because around the same time we get the cameo from Patrick Macnee, the quote unquote cameo.
Yeah. And this leads to a really bizarre sequence where they come upon the estate and they approach the maze sort of section, and they have to split up. They have to, we'll each take a separate way. And I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to have the clone Emma Peel, like somehow have her dressed identically to Emma Peel, and then have John not know which one she is, and is this the one helping me, or is this the one trying to hurt me, and play with that a little bit,
whatever.
But they kind of don't do anything with it. They turn some corners, and De Winter is there, and he and Steed kind of have a bit of a fight, and then he gets knocked out,
right?
I believe.
Yeah. I think, was that where does he get knocked out by the fake Emma Peel, I think?
Right.
He's having a duel with De Winter, but then he gets surprised by the other Peel.
And again, it's like, then he just wakes up, at his home, I believe, with the real Emma Peel, and it's like, how did we get here? It's like, there's so much traveling, like, back and forth to this estate and then to other people's homes, and it's like, we've done this kind of sequence already. Like, it's just bizarre that it's happened again, but the roles are reversed. And I guess
is this the time where one of the times where she's there and she's kind of like hypnotized, semi-conscious? Is this a third time? Because now that even though I like the movie more than I should, and I just watched it, but then I'm like, wait a minute, where again?
Yeah, I think I was getting ahead of myself.
I think chop up all over the place, because she's kind of captured by him, and there's a really awful, creepy scene where he's basically saying like, no, like, I just want you, and then he's like, hypnotized her and saying like, you'll remember nothing, and starts basically undressing her. But then right, and then that's where because that's what's her name shows up again, that Alice shows up, knocking at the door to interrupt that sequence.
I was jumping ahead because I forgot he just wakes up on this maze lawn. Alice wakes him up,
right,
and that's when Alice goes to distract De Winter by knocking on the door, and that pulls him away from this leering over Emma, and then that gives her enough time to sort of get away. It is an odd sequence,
like, trapped in the movie Labyrinth for a little bit.
Yes, and that's not explained.
Hallways, and I mean, I didn't need that explained. It's just odd that it was in the middle of other. It seemed out of the blue again, because they weren't fully committed to it, especially when you're just following up like a sexual assault scene with like, and then you'll be trapped in a wacky maze.
I got a real Connery as Dracula sort of vibe when he was when he's leering over her, and I feel like he even goes in maybe to kiss her neck or something that felt very a Dracula sort of attack. It's like, we kind of maybe missed out on not getting Sean Connery as a Dracula. But he dances with her while she's half out of it, and then that's when he leaves to go answer the door, and she goes through the house trying to escape, and keeps getting lost in the same room, and then just Steed is outside and kind of tapping on the wall or the window. He realizes the window is solid, and that
he
gives
sees
her
the window
enough.
kind of blacked out, so he's
Yeah,
tapping on
give
there, and she jumps through the mirror.
yeah, that's right.
Through
And
the
so
looking
that's what.
glass, if you will.
Yeah.
Which again, if you were leaning into this, weird, could have done more with that. But
Yeah. Honestly, at this point, I was watching it. I was like, are we in a snow globe? Are we somehow trapped in the De Winter sort of estate? Have we never left it since we first showed up? I kind of thought, like, are we doing something like that? Is that why there's, the funhouse sort of thing inside with her not being able to escape and, but we weren't doing anything that, crazy or outlandish, I guess.
No.
But yeah, that's right. That's what leads them. He gets Emma and takes her back to his place. Sort of then kind of role reversal there, and she's waking up at his place, and then they kind of have a moment. This is where I think where they almost kiss.
Yeah, that's where the boots come.
The boots show up. Yeah, it's like,
and that's I thought about, like, I don't know, like Quentin Tarantino liked this movie because it's got a whole scene with Uma Thurman's feet.
I noticed that, and they never show her feet.
Yeah,
it seems like they're very careful to not actually show her uncovered feet. So I wonder if that was her saying, "Please don't make my feet even more of a thing." But she
didn't want to be known as the foot lady.
Yeah. Then they're in his place, and I keep wondering, like, is there still a mission going on? Like, I don't know at this point. Like, what's the next step? What are we trying to find out? Where do we go from here? And then thankfully the ministry just shows up and just takes them all, and everyone's just in the room with them. Even the mother in his wheelchair, sneaks into the room with all of them too. It's,
I like that he's like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you knock," when they burst right in, and then again, snappy dialogue, and it works, but it's buried into whatever. Also, I not only buried kind of like by the direction of the film, but also, like, I feel like, I mean, this could be a matter of them realizing, them cutting ties with it early on, but like a lot of it sounded weird too.
Oh,
like the actual dialogue, the sound mix sounded odd, and I wonder if that was just like, well, we're not going to get them back in here to ADR it, or
right.
like we already cut bait with this. We're done. Like let's just use what we got.
Yeah.
Or them like recutting stuff and needing to restructure dialogue and then doing it kind of last minute. But a lot of it just sounded odd.
Yeah. Huh. No, that's interesting. So I didn't notice that, but
they get, or it could be my copy. Yeah. But they get split up again. They I think Mother sends Steed to go talk to Invisible Jones. And then Emma Peel's getting interrogated.
Right.
And again, both of these parts have things that I really, if you would have leaned into the goofiness, these would both be great. Like going to get advice from Invisible Jones, who's the actual played by the star of the original show. That's an awesome idea. But like, I feel like also, like, we tonally, it's like back to like, okay, well, this is what I thought we were going for, but we've missed a lot of this.
Yeah. So
her interrogation too is just really stylized and has some really fun, goofy, like that kind of tall chamber thing that she's in, very reminiscent of
padded cell sort of
Sin
thing.
City kind of like Frank Miller design. And that, like, where Father leans in and talking about, she's doing, again, now the more that I say it, like, Uma Thurman not the best for this role, because she was doing this like kind of crazy, like
playing into the file, but like it's out of nowhere now.
Out of nowhere, she was just doing it and not doing that convincingly, and just talking about like whether or not this is real. And then Father has that great line: "How real do you feel, Mrs. Peel?" which is great. Again, if you're in a goofy, if you're doing it for fun.
The whole Invisible Jones thing, I felt like, oh, we're in Hellboy. This is the Bureau of Paranormal, research, and that works, but in this movie, I'm just like, where did this come from? But at the same time, I was like, whatever, that's fine. This guy's invisible, and he says, oh, you that that accident I had, all those years ago. It's like, okay, sure. And
Yep.
he's the one to explain, oh, and we had this cloning program, and oh, that's probably where your double, Peel comes from. And oh, and August de Winter was head of that program. And it's like, so they quickly like give you enough that you need to explain some things, but it's it's very little, and it's very just matter of fact. And it's like, okay, I guess we just won't, focus on any of it, but it's fine. And
Yeah, it's
the
again not enough that it's like telling you why that. Not
Yeah.
enough to make everything else make sense. It's
Right.
and I don't need to have everything
Yeah, yeah.
spoon fed to me, but also
Sure.
it's just like, I mean, it could even be that they had a different, like maybe the reason he's invisible, again, not to read too much into the production of this. Maybe it's just like, oh, okay, well, we changed a lot of stuff, so we need him to say something completely different.
Yeah.
Maybe he did say something about, like De Winter's wife or his family history or something else weird, and they're like, oh, well, we had him say something else, but
we needed to change it.
it, but we couldn't get him back in, so we just literally had to phone it in, and we made him invisible.
Yeah. And the main what Steed gets out of this meeting is finding out he shows Jones the map that he acquired when chasing down after at the whole Weather Wonderland place. He got this map, so he needs to figure out where Brawley is located, and Jones gives him like, oh, it's their location is like on an island, like right in the middle of the Thames, like right in London. So that's gonna propel us kind of for the next bit of the movie. And at that point, they father, now with the Emma Peel clone, they knock out the real Emma Peel and then take her from the Ministry. They run into Mother, who tries to stop them, but doesn't do a good job. And
he just kind of gets knocked over in his wheelchair in the snow.
Yeah. And at this point, there's also the great scene where De Winter goes to like the UN for lack of a better
the kind of global council that's always in this kind of
movie. And just has this, I don't know, 2 or 3 minute monologue, villain centerpiece, which I really love this.
Yeah. I mean, now I bet he asked, it's like, can I do it in full, like Scottish? And they're like, oh yeah, go for it.
Most of this is in the trailer. This is what I mostly remember of knowing about this movie. So, I like he talks about the world will buy their weather from him, and he's walking down this corridor, and it's like, oh, people will drown, they'll burn, they'll freeze. It's great.
Yeah, he really leans into it, which is fun.
Yeah.
Although I don't like the way that where it ends, where he like knocks the globe into the camera that's watching it, or something like that.
I thought he was going to stab it with his this cane that he's been holding.
It's just a weird.
It's like, this didn't come out in 3D or anything, so it's an odd but
then they go to, I guess, does he get because he gets her back before they go to the island. I forgot
there's the hot air balloon. So father and the clone are taking Emma Peel. They're escaping from the Ministry in a
hot air balloon.
Air balloon. Yeah. And it's this odd, like, I didn't know this was going to be a climactic sort of ending for father and the clone, but Emma Peel wakes up and she is in this balloon, and she gets out and like starts tinkering with the balloon so that they can't get to their destination, just sabotaging the balloon. And so the clone goes out to stop her, and then just by her messing with the balloon and the controls and everything, it just causes the balloon to drift into the Weather Wonderland, like their sign, their electronic sign, and just causes the whole thing to explode. But it was an oddly
totally. There's no
anticlimactic. I wasn't expecting this to be a final fight for the clone. The whole clone thing, I didn't think was going to wrap up here.
Yeah, there's no kind of confrontation. There's no come up. I mean, there's a little bit of confrontation, but like, there's just barely, like, it's like a hard to distinguish what's going on. They don't have like a real face off. They just kind of like have a little bit of a battle on that thing. Father gets like, no, she's still in the thing, being like, what's going on up there? And then the whole they just explode, and it's like, oh well, I guess that was that.
And if they were kind of leaning into the whole James Bond of it all, I could see, okay, well, the clone's still going to show up later.
Right,
she had just enough time to bail out, and we'll see her later. So that's fine. But no, I mean, this is the end of the clone saga. For what it's worth. And that was probably part of this movie. I liked the mystery of it. I wish that there was a good, satisfying, reason for all of it. But yeah, I don't know. And this is where like Steed finds her in the snow. She dove down to the ground, and he finds her like in like sitting in a lion statue, like its paws. And I wonder, like, it would make sense if she just landed in a snow pile, but if he finds her on this statue, it's like, how did she not kill herself?
Yeah.
But so that's when that's what kind of then leads to them heading to the secret lair of De Winter. And now it's like Peel is wearing the costume of the evil clone that has been in all the marketing at this point. So now she is wearing the iconic sort of black catsuit. But
I wonder. I again, I just looked it up before too. I think the novelization is going for like $3. So
okay,
it's definitely
order two and send one my way.
Yeah.
I'll Venmo you the.
But yeah, interesting to figure out what. I wouldn't be surprised if like there was no second Peel throughout this whole thing. If it was just if it really was her kind of kind of flipping one way or the other, or there's some kind of he had some kind of control over her or what, I don't know. But the fact that she escaped and then is suddenly because that also plays into like, well, like, how do we know it's the real one? All this other stuff.
And and like I said earlier, like I thought they were really playing up that like we don't know which one Steed is with, like, but they have this moment where they're crossing over the river in these like hamster cage sort of balloons.
Ball things. I love that that visual.
Yeah, that works. And they get there, and
especially because they're just strolling. They're not running in it. They're just kind of casually like walking there.
Mm-hmm. And this is where you get the "How now, brown cow" that I only know from this movie. And I thought it was I assumed that was from the TV show. Like I thought it must be like a common passcode phrase from the show. And so they're using it in the marketing, and it was like a big thing. And I couldn't really find a lot about that phrase, or, it's kind of a nonsensical sort of phrase that doesn't really mean any. How now used to mean, Shakespearean, like Shakespeare would use how now as hello, but the brown cow part is just more of it's just meant to be like a vocal warm up sort of thing. So I don't know what the point of it is here, but I thought it.
Wait, have you not
somehow
heard that phrase before this, or you just don't know?
I only know it from this
in context of it. Huh.
I only knew it from this. I probably the first time I ever heard "How now, brown cow" was the trailer for this movie.
Interesting. No, I know that just as like almost like a nursery rhyme kind of thing. It's
okay.
Just a little vocal, little rhyme, like, see you later, alligator, that kind of a thing. But like that, you've heard that one though, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. But that like, so it doesn't explain why it's kind of, why it doesn't, to me, give it any context here other than it's just like, oh, okay, well, I guess that's what they're doing.
Yeah, it would make sense because they tried to get into the underground base with that passphrase, which would make sense if Emma Peel knew it from the clone, like somehow. Right. Or if how does she know that this is a passcode? And the whole, it's kind of a moot point because De Winter is watching them anyway, so they're not even getting in secretly. It's like he's letting them in regardless. So it's a oddly structured sort of like thing that they think they're sneaking in, they're being allowed in, but they do have a secret, a code phrase. So I don't know.
And one that's fun to say in a Sean Connery voice. So
yeah,
maybe that was the whole thing.
Maybe, yeah. I like this takes them underground, and it you have Emma Peel doing the Obi-Wan thing. We're trying to go out and shut down the tractor beam,
right?
While Steed goes and confronts De Winter, and I enjoyed pretty much all of this. Kind of the rest of the rest of the movie I thought wasn't too bad. I liked what she had to do, although like she gets out onto this, kind of almost a catwalk situation. This orb control computer thing is being suspended with wires, and she gets in a fight with Eddie Izzard, who again at this point has not said a word and won't, except for screaming. Has a fight with him on these wires, and that's all great. Like it plays really well.
I thought almost. I feel like it needed, again, this is where I was like, they needed an action director for this, but I don't know about the director, but I was like, I feel like this seems like
the director of such classics as National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like they needed somebody like to be like, because I like the setup for it. I like the idea from it, and I can see that, again, going back to like the script and the art design maybe of it being good, and then the execution of it being like, I maybe just, cut or shoot this a little differently so it's a little more exciting, rather than it just felt like very kind of tight, condensed, and stayed a very kind of like fight in what should have been a very wild kind of a thing. But I like that, I like the steps of it. I just feel like I wanted to see it differently, like having it partway through, having the bottom cut out so they're just hanging by their hands. That's very exciting, but show it to me slightly differently.
I just looked in my notes and I almost missed something. I want to step back just into the previous sort of thing with them walking across the river in those balloons, and we see De Winter seeing them on CCTV, and so do you think that's a Watchmen reference? Because we see at the end of Watchmen, Rorschach and Night Owl are approaching Karnak, and Ozymandias is observing them. It's like they're arriving on those like weird
right.
Almost like bird scooters, hover things. So they're approaching the villain's lair on weird modes of transport. That's kind of what we're getting here. They're being they're being captured on surveillance. And I wonder if that's meant to be a Watchmen reference, but I don't know. So did want to,
could be inspired, but not explicitly meant to be a reference. But yeah,
and it could be something like the cinematographer may have known, like,
right,
I know Watchmen, I'm going to do a reference to it here. Maybe no one else kind of knew it at the time, but I don't know. But the whole thing with her in that computer sort of sphere and trying to disable the weather device, it's like they play it as if she's trying to disarm a bomb. And I feel like if you're just trying to disable this machine, pull any wire, pull every wire, like,
right. Well, although it is a movie, so pulling a wire might make the the clock run twice as fast or something dumb like that.
But
to
me it was just like, it's not
something.
Yeah, like just break the whole damn thing, that will, do what you want it to do. But then let's talk about Steed. He gets to confront De Winter, and they have a sword fight, and actually we learned that Steed does have his sword on him and part of his umbrella.
Right.
So I like that. I like that he also holds the umbrella part of it and uses it a bit during the fight.
This fight was a little better staged, I feel like, than the hanging
it
fight.
felt very much like I was in the wide shots. I'm watching two stuntmen, because we don't need to see their faces, and so then the rest of it's kind of like flashes of the actors with water being splashed around. So not super convincing that it's these two men fighting, but it's fine.
I do like the when he tries his trick with the darts again, and Steed blocks it with his hat, and then he looks at the hat and he says, "You'll pay for that." And I'm pretty sure he meant it literally, like you will pay me you will reimburse me for this hat.
Yes,
and not like you're not you will suffer at my hands. It was more just kind of like, no,
right.
I'll send you a bill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, didn't really have a lot of specific notes on the actual conclusion of the battle. I mean, De Winter gets run through with his own this staff sort of thing that he's got.
Which then gets lightning.
Turns him into a lightning rod. Yeah.
Even though John Steed is on the same kind of metal railing as him, it doesn't affect him at all. It just kind of zaps him. And it's kind of a reverse Return of the Jedi. It kind of sucks him up into the tunnel, into the tube.
That surprised me.
Yeah.
And so I like that she dives down to his level. Well, this whole thing, it's like we're underground, but there's a lot of air here. I don't know. The whole facility is I don't really fully understand, but it's fine. Because like once they're back together, I really like the line, what kept you? The weather.
Yeah.
So that totally great.
Good little clever lines like that, and very James Bondish.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then I thought they were going to go another James Bond kind of route. They go into whatever De Winter's sort of control room is kind of this glass sphere that seemingly can be used as a escape pod sort of thing. It seems like so they use it in they get into the water with it, and I really thought the movie was going to end with like so many early James Bond movies did, where the hero and the girl were in a water, in a boat, in a submarine, and it's something on water, and then we'd fade out to a kiss with them or something like that. But they didn't do that.
And they even like tease it where it's just like, oh, that's, I think this
we
calls
need champagne.
For a toast, and they show the champagne, but then when they do the champagne, they're out on the roof with
Mother.
with Mother.
Yeah.
Just hanging out.
That's
having a meeting.
And I really thought there'd be some sort of like end sequence, maybe like a Men in Black kind of getting into the outfit, sort of stinger tease for her joining, becoming an agent, becoming part of, this Ministry of Defense. Like I really thought it would end with the hint that these two would now be agents together and go on further adventures. And I mean, unless maybe I don't know how the series worked if they weren't both, secret agents and on the team together. So I'm assuming she was, equally an agent like him. So I really thought it would end with that, teeing that up for adventures to come. But
no, instead we just got a helicopter shot of a roof.
Yeah.
So let's look at this roof.
Yeah. But then they bring it back around. It's like, they are doing Bond, because it fades out of the song that could be in any James Bond movie, and it's sung by Grace Jones. So it's a great, song. I don't know the song, but it's like it had that feeling, they had the proper feeling of a James Bond movie. So it just, in summary, it's like, did they want me to think of James Bond the entire movie? I think they did, but then this movie has Invisible Jones and teddy bear costumes, and I don't know what to think.
Yeah, I as much as I like this movie, I also don't know what to think for part of the time.
Yeah,
it's like I know what I want it to be and what I think that they were going for. Maybe again, like in the script process, like they're just like, oh, let's have like James Bond movie, but with like goofy, weird, quirky fun. You know what I mean?
But not so goofy that it's like Austin Powers, where it's spoofy and ridiculous. I mean,
right? It's,
having
fun, not making fun. That's and staying within. I mean, as much as I was going to say staying within reality, but
right?
It's
this heightened reality. Yeah. We live in this heightened reality in this movie, where I keep thinking about like, the first time we meet her, it's the kind of world where you can get a package and then be told to arrive at a place and it not be
right
odd. It's like she never reacts to that like well, this is weird, like,
Yeah.
so it is that, yeah, it's just, we live in this heightened reality world where these things just happen, I guess.
Yeah.
But here we are at the end of the Avengers.
Yeah. Very confused when Samuel L. Jackson didn't come out at the end.
Of course.
Like, oh, wait a minute. What did I sit here for nothing?
Yeah. Yeah, it left me with so many, like, I really wanted the cloning sort of stuff to be wrapped up, and
no, instead it was just kind of like swept under the rug by an invisible man.
Yeah.
This planet, these people, they are nothing to me.
You were made to be ruled.
The universe's power. You unstoppable power. Come to me, son of Jor-El. Kneel before Zod. And I am that force. I am that power.
In the end, you will always kneel.
Kneel before your master.
What do we talk about? I mean, I'll say that the most villainous, but because it's just kind of out of the blue and
Okay.
and super creepy, is just
Yeah.
that kind of sexual assault scene, which doesn't go, not explicit and gets interrupted, luckily, but it just seems kind of like
Unnecessary.
random. Yeah, unnecessary and kind of random, and again, maybe I'll report back if I get to read the novelization, but just seems like, what? Where did that come from?
Mine, I had the same thing. Just Winter being a sex pest. Because I feel like the only reason they did it was because they thought, well, it'll work because you're James Bond, and James Bond was very forward with women, and so it'll work because you're Sean Connery. You can pull this off, I think is what they were doing. And maybe I guess it sounded like it never worked, for you.
No, they set it up to be creepy too.
Right.
So it's not like they wanted it to be like, oh, it'll be okay. It's
smooth
just like,
and yeah.
They wanted to, I think, reinforce like, hey, this is a creepy guy, but like not in a way that it just seems suddenly they threw that in there without kind of giving it any background or forethought.
Right. Yeah.
I believe there's a hero in all of us
I just finally know what I have to do.
that keeps us honest,
I'm here to fight for truth and justice in the American way.
gives us strength,
You will give the people of Earth an ideal to strive towards.
makes us noble.
And I know in my heart that it's right.
Heroic, I kept, I was going back and forth thinking of, what did either, John Steed or Emma Peel do that was the most heroic, and then I was like, wait a minute, it was neither of them. It was Alice showing up with her machine gun to kind of take out the henchman.
We have a match. I wrote down
All right.
Machine Gun Alice.
Nice. Yeah, that was definitely and your matter of factness. Like, okay, you're good now. Let's go.
Yeah.
That was because the rest of it, as much as it's what they were supposed to be doing, but the characters are kind of like understated and more reacting to things going on, and so that was I feel like
well,
that was
and
the most
even
standout
like
heroism.
I guess you could think of the times that they must have been saved by the other. We don't see. He gets shot by the evil clone. We don't see her take him back to his place. When she jumps out of the funhouse, she just wakes up, and we know that he then takes her back, but we don't see it. It's like, again, it's them just, they're not showing us what we want to see. They're telling us what, what, I don't know.
Showing us the aftermath of what.
Yeah. So even what should be heroic, just they just don't do anything with. So
No.
Yeah. What would you rate it, and kind of your overall thoughts, and why you give it that rating?
I mean, it's kind of the weird thing where if you had asked me before I rewatched it for this, it would have been higher. And then going back, I'm like, oh no, I see the holes there. I see that. Yeah, this is confusing. Wait, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And that's not the goal of the show, is not to, make you second guess, your gut, but
if it's, what is that, out of 5, I'd put it in the 3 category where I
Okay.
liked it. I still like a lot of parts of it that I like. A lot of it doesn't come together. I feel like, again, it was closer to the kind of James Bond ideal than some of the James Bonds that came out. So I feel it that way. And I'm a sucker for goofy stuff. You're going to be, I've said this about the Star Wars prequels. They're like, if you're going to be like, if not so great, be not so great and goofy, and that's fine. If you're not so great and take yourself seriously, that's going to get a lower grade. So this, I feel like, for the most part, was trying to be goofy, and I think the times it errs is when it's trying to take itself a little bit more seriously. So I'll go in the. How precise do you want to get? I'll just stick with the 3.
You can do half ratings if you want, but a solid rating is.
I'll leave it with a 3.
Totally fine. Yeah. Okay. And this for me, it left me watching it. It made me angry, and I will, not to delve into it, but I was not in a good mood or place when I sat down to watch this. So it probably didn't help that I wasn't having a good day to start with.
Yeah.
But it didn't help the watching of this movie. So, throughout it, I was just blown away by kind of what I was seeing, and it never really, like, this movie made me angry. Like, when it ended, I was like, I did not like that. I never want to see that again. But like so often happens, I enjoyed talking about it way more than I actually watching it.
Right.
But I mean, that being said, I'm still like, I'm at a 1. I can't imagine ever watching this again. And I think, to average that out to a 2, I'm perfectly comfortable with that, giving the Avengers a 2. But it's just, and for so many reasons, like I said, it left me, the things I wanted from this movie, it just threw away, and just didn't have answers for most of it, and now finding out that they just hacked at it, in the editing bay just to get it under a certain running time. It's like, that's why, I'm sure that's why it felt so haphazard and just like all over the place. So yeah. Unfortunate that
I don't understand the mentality of like, well, this movie isn't as good as we thought it would be. This movie is not going to be terribly successful. Let's make it short
so we can play it more.
I guess, yeah.
Get those tickets, get those seats, recirculating.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know what the decision there is to, like, if you've got it all, just put it all out. Like, maybe maybe that'll make it. I don't know, but
unsure.
Yeah, here we are. Let's do your plugs, and I certainly know where I've certainly told people about Star Wars Minute, but please plug all your stuff.
Thanks. Yeah. Star Wars Minute is my main thing. That's where I'm from. It's StarWarsMinute.com. You can get to. We do it, daily, Monday through Friday. Break down 1 episode for each minute of every Star Wars movie, and it's also on YouTube now. The last couple of seasons, and then I've also done some alphabetical shows. Some alphabetical, in which we went alphabetically through all the Beatles songs. ABC Devo, where we went through all the Devo songs alphabetically, and then we did we took it to TV and did Star Trek, the original series, in alphabetical order. And so ABCD TOS, we've got some rumblings there that might be coming back at some point soon. So we'll keep an eye out for those guys.
Nice. It's a fun show.
Thanks. Yeah, it's fun to do, and it's just a matter of finding time now.
Right on.
But yeah, that's where I am. That's where I can be found.
Can't thank you enough for for being on, and huge treat to get to do this with you. And
well, thanks for having me on. Thanks for sticking with me. I know it can be hard to schedule.
That's all right. Well, I've got you on schedule for Minute of Thieves soon, so hopefully we can work that out too, and get you over there for some Prince of Thieves.
Yeah.
But let's see. For the listeners, we have our next episode is going to be Blade, the Wesley Snipes, Marvel movie. So looking forward to that. And then I believe we've got Star Trek Insurrection, and then Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
I've seen that.
Yeah. So that's what we've got coming up. And yeah, you can find me over on, Minute of Thieves. I'm doing the Road to Sherwood episodes, kind of a precursor to the Minute episodes proper. We've done the Errol Flynn Adventures of Robin Hood, and then we did the Mask of Zorro. So kind of in that same vein of a Robin Hood adventure, but
slightly different.
Yeah. But I think that is going to do it for this one. So as always, citizens, never fear being wet.
You better wake up. The world you live in is just a sugar-coated topping. There is another world beneath it. The real world.
For thousands of years, they have existed among us.
You keep your eyes open. They're everywhere. Chances are you've seen them yourself and didn't know it.
A secret nation.
Our livelihood depends on our ability to blend in.
With a lust for power.
We should be ruling the humans. These people are our food.
They've got their claws into everything. Politics, finance, real estate.
There's a war going on out there. He makes the weapons. I use them.
Now, one will lead them to conquer mankind.
Tonight, the age of man comes to an end. We're gonna be gods.
And one will try to stop him dead.
There are worse things out tonight than vampires.
Like what?
Like me.
Half human.
Blade's mother was attacked by a vampire while she was pregnant.
Half immortal.
You got the best of both worlds. All our strengths, none of our weaknesses.
He is their greatest fear and our only hope.
It's open season on all vampires.
Wesley Snipes, Stephen Dorff.
You're one of them, aren't you?
No, I'm something else.
Blade.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. Find the show on Facebook and Twitter at Real Comic Heroes. All music and audio are the property of their respective creators.